I've always believed there are certain truths in life that are fixed, like the ground beneath your feet or the name on your birth certificate. Things that are so fundamental, so incuestionable, that you build your entire existence on them without ever thinking they might not be real. For me, it was my name, Jessica Thompson, 32 years old, graphic designer, only child of Susan and Michael Thompson, a woman who liked rainy mornings, quiet cafes, and the feeling of sketching on crisp paper. I thought I knew who I was, until a stranger at a pharmacy shattered everything with 5 quiet, devastating words. It was a Tuesday. Not a special Tuesday. Just another gray, wet Portland afternoon. The kind where the sky never really brightens. My head felt like it was filled with wet cement. My sinuses throbbing. My throat raw. I'd left work early to pick up antibiotics at the Walgreens on Northwest 23rd, wrapped in my dad's oversized University of Oregon sweatshirt. I was standing in line, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights, when the woman in front of me turned around. She wasn't remarkable at first. Glance, gray hair tied in a bun. Cardigan. The kind of person who might spend her weekends gardening. But when her eyes met mine, something changed. Her face drained of color, like someone had flipped a switch inside her. Her hands trembled. And then she said it. "You look just like my sister." I laughed softly. Because people say that sometimes. I've always had one of those faces, at least. That's what my best friend Ashley says. Familiar. The kind of face that makes strangers think we went to high school together or sat next to each other in some forgotten college lecture hall. But this woman didn't laugh with me. She didn't smile. Her lips trembled, and I saw the glimmer of tears welling in her eyes. She went missing 25 years ago. The words landed in the center of my chest like a heavy stone. I felt my polite smile falter. There was something raw in her voice, a deep, aching kind of pain I couldn't joke away. I tried to gently step back, but she reached out, her fingers brushing the air like she needed to touch something real. "What was her name?" I asked. My voice tight. She stared at me for what felt like forever. Then, softly, she said 2 words that froze the world around me. "Your name." The prescription bottle slipped from my hand. I heard it hit the linoleum floor. Pills scattered across the aisle like tiny white bones. But neither of us moved to pick them up. "My name," I whispered. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her wrinkled cheeks. "Rachel. Rachel Marie Anderson." Rachel. My middle name. Jessica Rachel Thompson. My parents told me they gave me Rachel to honor my grandmother, a woman I never met, because, they said, she died before I was born. But in that moment, with this stranger trembling before me, that middle name no longer felt like a sweet family tribute. It felt like a fuse being lit. "You have her eyes," she whispered. "Green, with little gold flecks. And that scar above your eyebrow." My hand moved to the thin scar above my right brow. I got it when I fell off my bike at 7. My dad rushed me to the ER. And my mom held my hand while the doctor stitched me up. I remembered the smell of antiseptic, the bright white lights, the way she stroked my hair. But now those memories didn't feel as solid as they used to. "How old are you?" she asked. 32. I said automatically. She'd be 32. The woman whispered back. She had a birthmark on her left shoulder, crescent moon-shaped. The buzzing lights above me grew louder, like angry wasps. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I do have a crescent-shaped birthmark on my left shoulder. I've had it my whole life. My college boyfriend used to kiss it and call it my lucky charm. Her shaking hand reached into her purse, pulling out a worn photograph. She held it out to me like a sacred offering. This was her. Rachel. The girl in the photo grinned at the camera, 2 front teeth missing. Wearing a pink dress, I swear I remembered owning. She had my face. Not a resemblance. Not a similarity. It was me. I have to go. I stammered, backing away. I'm sorry. I have to go. And then I ran. Out of the pharmacy. Into the rain. I didn't stop until I was in my car, with the door slammed shut and the engine off. The raindrops pelted the windshield in relentless rhythm. My heart was pounding too fast. My breath coming in ragged bursts. I clutched the steering wheel like it could anchor me to reality. But reality was already slipping, unraveling thread by thread. Here's the thing about the truth. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't knock gently. It crashes in, sometimes on a random Tuesday, sometimes while you're sick, wearing old jeans, standing in a pharmacy line. That morning, I'd woken up believing I was Jessica Thompson. By that night, I wasn't sure who I was at all. My apartment in Portland's Pearl District is small but warm, exposed brick walls, thrifted furniture, and plants that miraculously survived despite my neglect. My parents helped me move in 5 years ago when I landed my first big freelance design contract. They were proud. They always were. Mom, the pediatric nurse who made kids laugh through their pain. Dad, the accountant who loved balancing checkbooks like other people love Sunday football. When I was little, they held my hands on walks, told me bedtime stories. I helped me make pancakes on Sunday mornings. I never once thought of them as anything but mine. I grew up believing our family was small but close. Just us. Aunt Karen and Uncle Bill. And my cousins. We had no grandparents. Supposedly they all passed before I was born. No mysterious extended relatives. No secrets. But after that day in the pharmacy, everything I thought was unshakable felt suddenly fragile. When I got home, I tore open the oldest family photo album I owned. Jessica's early years written in my mother's neat, looping handwriting. I flipped through the pages, my hands shaking. My 3rd birthday. Chocolate cake on my face. A pink party hat. Christmas at 3.5. Hugging a stuffed elephant. Preschool at 4. Grinning with a Minnie Mouse backpack. But nothing before that. No first steps. No hospital. Newborn photo. No toddler years. It was like my life began at age 3. I called my mom. She answered on the 2nd ring. Her voice warm and familiar. Hi, sweetie. Did you get your prescription? Mom, I said, my throat tight. Why don't I have any baby pictures? Silence. Heavy and wrong. We told you this before. She finally said. The house fire. When you were 3. We lost everything. What house fire? I whispered. Where? Sacramento. She answered after a pause too long to be casual. What was our address? I don't remember. Jess. It was so long ago. You remember everything. Mom. You still have the receipt from my kindergarten shoes. How can you not remember where we lived? Her voice cracked. Jessica. You're scaring me. Why are you asking this? I hung up. I stumbled into the bathroom and stared at myself in the mirror. My face. My eyes. The scar. The birthmark on my shoulder. The one she'd mentioned. I touched it and felt cold spread through me. I called Ashley next. Jess. What's going on? Can you come over? I whispered. She arrived 20 minutes later. Still in her scrubs. I told her everything in a breathless, tangled, rush the pharmacy. The photo. The name Rachel. She listened, her face shifting from confusion to concern. Okay, she said finally. It could be a coincidence. Rachel's a common name. Birthmarks happen. Scars happen. Maybe your parents just didn't talk about the fire much. Then why don't I have anything from before age 3? I shot back. Why can't they remember our address? Why have they never taken me back? Ashley bit her lip. Jess, what do you want to do? I need to know the truth. That night, with my laptop on the kitchen table and my hands trembling, I searched for her. Carol Anderson. It didn't take long. Facebook. A profile photo of the woman from the pharmacy, holding what looked like her grandchildren. A cover photo of a blooming garden. I clicked through her albums. Holidays. Birthdays. Ordinary life. Then I saw it. An album titled, Never Forgotten. I clicked. The first image was a family portrait. A woman in her 30s. A man. An older girl. And a younger girl with a gap-toothed grin. She looked exactly like me. The caption read, "The last photo of our complete family." Rachel went missing 2 weeks later. We never stopped hoping. My breath hitched. Jess. Ashley whispered, staring over my shoulder. That's you. I sent Carol a message with shaking fingers. This is Jessica from the pharmacy. I think we need to talk. 3 days later, I was sitting across from her in a quiet cafe. My heart pounding so hard I could barely hold the mug in my hands. She'd brought a manila folder. I'd brought questions that might burn my entire world to the ground. She sat across from me with the kind of stillness that isn't really still at all, like a tree bracing itself against a storm. Her hands were folded over the manila folder on the table, knuckles pale against the soft yellow light of the cafe. She had the look of someone who had spent years waiting for a door to open. And now that it finally had, she was afraid to step through it. I was afraid, too. The cafe around us was warm and quiet, full of the gentle clinking of cups and the faint scent of cinnamon. It should have been comforting, but to me, every sound felt far away, every color too sharp, every heartbeat too loud. I was living in a moment that didn't quite belong to the world outside. Thank you for meeting me, Carol said softly. I nodded but didn't trust my voice. My hands were wrapped tightly around my coffee cup, though I couldn't feel the heat. I'd spent the last 3 days in a haze of sleeplessness, staring at old photo albums and questioning memories I'd never thought to doubt. She slowly opened the folder. Inside was a life I'd never known was mine. Newspaper clippings, missing person flyers, a worn photograph of a little girl in a yellow sundress with butterflies on it. The girl with my eyes. This was in the Denver Post. She said, tapping a headline. Local girl vanishes from backyard. The date read June 3. 1998. I wasn't born in 1998. At least, that's what I'd always believed. We had just moved to that house. Carol continued, our voice shaking. New neighborhood. New beginning. I thought the fence was secure. You were playing in the backyard with your bike while I went inside to answer the phone. It was my mother calling about Sunday dinner. I was gone for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. When I came back, the gate was open. And you were gone. I stared at the article. The black and white photo of the little girl beneath the headline. Her hair was slightly messy, sticking out at the ends like she'd been playing hard. Her mouth tilted in a shy, toothy smile. My stomach churned. She picked up another clipping missing posters. Age progression sketches. Police reports. My own face aged on paper without me ever knowing. They thought maybe you wandered off. Or that someone took you. We searched for weeks. Volunteers combed the neighborhood. The woods. The highways. I printed thousands of these posters. Her fingers brushed the edges of the flyers like they were holy relics. I saw my face everywhere. On milk cartons. Newsprint. Sketches. I'm not her, I said. But my voice sounded thin, like something breaking. Carol looked up. Her eyes were red but steady. Your middle name is Rachel. Your birthday is May 15th. You're 32. You have a scar above your eyebrow. A A crescent-shaped birthmark on your left shoulder. You're left-handed. I flinched because she was right. About everything. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a small, stuffed gray elephant. Its fur was matted. Its trunk slightly bent. A faded blue ribbon tied around its neck. This was yours. She whispered. You called him Peanut. You wouldn't go anywhere without him. The air around me tilted. The world went muffled and sharp all at once. I stared at the elephant. And for a flicker of a second, I felt something, a phantom memory buried deep, the soft fur against my cheek, a child's laughter, someone humming softly. I wanted to shove the feeling away, to bury it back where it came from, but it pressed forward, warm and relentless. This doesn't prove anything. I managed to whisper. Carol nodded. I know. That's why I brought this. She placed a small DNA test kit on the table. A simple thing. Just a swab. A vial. A form. But I knew the weight of what it represented. I already took mine. If you're willing, we'll have an answer in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks to learn whether the life I'd lived was a story written on a stolen page. He hesitated. Not because I didn't want the truth, but because I did. What happened to your husband? I asked. Her face softened. The pain in her eyes deepening like a bruise that never faded. David died 5 years ago. Heart attack. He never gave up hope. But the not knowing, it destroyed him. Every time the phone rang, every knock on the door, he thought it might be news about Rachel. She blinked back tears. He would have been so happy to meet you. My throat tightened. And Emma, she added, a small, fragile smile breaking through. She was 10 when you disappeared. She blamed herself for years. I thought she should have been watching you more closely. It changed her life. She became a social worker, specializing in missing children. She built her world around what happened to you. I looked down at the test kit. The elephant. The flyers. My past was sitting on that cafe table like a puzzle I hadn't even known existed. I picked up the swab. My hands were shaking. My heart was shaking. Carol reached across the table and gently covered my hand with hers. Rachel, she said softly, her voice breaking on the name. I never stopped looking for you. The sound of that name spoken with that kind of love nearly split me open. I swabbed my cheek. She sealed the sample. And in that moment, the ground beneath my feet cracked. The next 10 days were the longest of my life. Every hour, every minute was a quiet war inside my head. I went to work. I answered emails. I made coffee. I breathed. But beneath all of it, a quiet drumbeat pounded in the background. What if everything you know is a lie? I avoided my parents' calls. I couldn't hear their voices without feeling like my skin was being peeled back, layer by layer. I told Ashley everything. She tried to be rational, to remind me that DNA could still prove nothing, that coincidences exist. But even she started to look at me differently. Not with judgment, but with a kind of quiet, uneasy wonder. The night the email arrived, I sat frozen on the bathroom floor. My laptop glowed in the dark. DNA results available now. I stared at the subject line for 20 minutes. My hand hovered over the trackpad. My heart thudded against my ribs. Each beat a countdown. When I finally clicked, the world didn't explode. It just shifted. 99. 9% match. I didn't cry the way I thought I would. I didn't scream. I just folded forward on the cold tile floor and let the weight of those numbers crush me. I was Rachel Marie Anderson. Jessica Thompson was a story built on someone else's tragedy. I confronted them the following Sunday. The house I grew up in, small, beige, full of familiar scents and echoes, had always been my safe place. But that day, it felt like enemy ground. My mom opened the door with her usual bright smile. But the moment she saw my face, it faltered. "We need to talk," I said. We sat in the living room. The one with the framed family photos, birthdays, graduations, Christmas mornings. I stared at those pictures like they belonged to someone else. I handed them the printed DNA results. My mother began to cry almost instantly. My father's face went gray, like someone had drained the blood out of him. "I need the truth," I said. "All of it." Mom clutched the paper, her hands trembling. "We wanted a baby so badly," she whispered. "We tried for 10 years. 3 miscarriages. Failed adoptions. Then Michael's cousin called. Said she knew someone who had a little girl who needed a home. The mother was a drug addict. She said she didn't want her child. We thought we were saving you." "You knew," I choked out. "You had to know that wasn't true." Dad finally spoke. His voice was quiet. "We suspected, but we were desperate. And you were perfect. You were sweet and bright and everything we ever wanted. We told ourselves it didn't matter." "It did matter," I snapped. My voice cracked. "You stole me. From a family who loved me." Mom sobbed into her hands. "We moved here from Ohio. Not California like we told you. We changed our names. Michael was Mark. I was Sandra. We wanted to start over. Every missing child poster, every news story. You had to have seen my face." "We avoided them," Dad said. "We turned off the news. We looked away. We convinced ourselves you were better off with us." Tears burned hot down my cheeks. I didn't recognize the people sitting in front of me anymore. But they weren't strangers either. They were the people who taught me how to ride a bike, who stayed up with me through fevers, who held me when I cried. They were both my parents and my kidnappers. And I didn't know how to breathe in a world where both of those things could be true. The silence that settled after my father's confession wasn't really silence at all. It was heavy thick with 25 years of lies, quiet betrayals, and desperate love. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the soft creak of the house settling, the sound of my mother's uneven breathing as she clutched a crumpled tissue. I'd spent my whole life in this living room. I'd celebrated birthdays here, curled up on this couch when I got sick, laughed so hard my stomach hurt during family movie nights. And now, every familiar object felt tainted. The floral curtains, the porcelain lamp with the crack Dad glued together years ago, the framed pictures of us at Crater Lake, all of it felt like props on a stage I didn't know I'd been performing on. "Jessica," Mom whispered my name like it might hold me in place, like saying it could undo what we both knew. But Jessica wasn't my name. Not really. "Why?" My voice broke into 1,000 sharp edges. "Why didn't you ever tell me? Why didn't you ever give me the chance to know where I came from?" Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away before she could touch me. The hurt on her face was instant, like a knife twisting. "We were terrified," she whispered. "We thought if you knew, if anyone found out, they'd take you away. And we loved you so much. You were everything." I stared at her. The woman who had sat by my hospital bed when I broke my arm, who stayed up with me during nightmares, who cried at my high school graduation. She had loved me. I could see that. I had loved her too. But that didn't erase the truth. "You stole me," I said, the words tasting like iron in my mouth. Her sob cracked the air like glass. "We didn't steal you," she insisted. "We saved you." I turned to my dad. His hands were clenched together, white at the knuckles. He wasn't crying, but his face looked like someone who had been carrying a boulder for too many years. "We didn't think we'd get another chance," he said quietly. "We thought we were giving you a better life." The way he said better life made my stomach twist. They had convinced themselves that their desperation was righteous. That taking me wasn't stealing, it was rescuing. But no amount of good intentions erases the fact that for 25 years, my real family lived with a hole in their world where I should have been. The weeks that followed blurred together into something that didn't feel entirely real. Lawyers. Police interviews. Late-night calls from reporters I didn't answer. My parents, Susan and Michael. Though now even those names felt like lies faced charges. Custodial interference. Identity fraud. The case was complicated. Old. Tangled with emotions and years gone by. Their lawyers argued they hadn't kidnapped me in the traditional sense. That I hadn't been locked away. Or hidden in fear. That they'd given me a stable home. That the statute of limitations had long since passed. That I'd lived a good life. I sat in the back of the courtroom the day of their hearing. Hands clasped tightly in my lap. Carol sat beside me. She didn't reach for my hand, not this time. She simply sat there. Present. Like an anchor. The prosecutor talked about a missing child. About 25 years of search efforts. About a family that never stopped hoping. The defense talked about a desperate couple. About how they'd loved me as their own. About how they'd believed I was better off. I wasn't sure which hurt more. When the judge finally handed down the sentence probation and community service, I felt the air leave my lungs. No prison. No real punishment. Just words written on paper. I should have been angry. Another part of me was just numb. How do you punish people who raised you? Who taught you love? But also took something from another family that can never be returned. I didn't go home with them after that hearing. I went with Carol. Meeting Emma for the first time was like looking at an echo of myself in a different life. She was 37 now. 5 years older than me, or rather, older than Rachel. She had the same green eyes with the gold flecks. The same smile that curved just slightly more on the left side. She opened the door before Carol could even knock and pulled me into a hug that nearly knocked the breath out of me. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered against my shoulder. I stiffened at first. I'd spent weeks building invisible walls around myself, trying to hold everything in. But Emma held me like someone who'd been missing me for decades. Like she'd memorized a space in her arms where I was supposed to be. And something in me cracked. I found myself clinging back. Inside her house. Family photos lined the hallway. There was one of her as a little girl in a pink dress, holding a balloon. One of her wedding day. One with her 2 children, Lily and Noah. Lily was 7. The same age I had been when I disappeared. She approached me shyly, hiding half behind her mother's leg. "Are you the aunt who was lost?" she asked softly. I blinked, my throat tightening. "Yeah," I whispered. "I guess I am. Grandma said you were lost, but now you're found." Emma smiled through her tears and kissed the top of Lily's head. "That's right, sweetheart." Lily reached out her tiny hand and slipped it into mine. It was warm, trusting, simple. I nearly fell apart right then. That night, Emma showed me photo albums that had been waiting for me all along. Not the ones I grew up with. Carefully curated by the people who raised me. These were the albums filled with the life I'd never gotten to live. Me and Emma on the swings in the backyard. Me on my 7th birthday with cake on my chin. Me with Dad, my real dad on his shoulders at the zoo. Me hugging Peanut. The same gray elephant Carol had kept safe all those years. I didn't remember any of it. But my heart did something strange when I touched those photos. Like recognizing a song I couldn't quite hum anymore. "I used to talk to you through your picture," Emma said quietly, tracing a finger over one of the photos. "Every birthday. Every Christmas. I told you what I was doing. What you were missing. I always thought, somehow, you'd hear me." I felt the burn behind my eyes before the tears actually came. This family had carried my absence like a ghost at their table. And I had lived all those years as Jessica, never knowing what I'd left behind. The Thompsons, my parents who weren't my parents, are still in my life. But everything is different now. We meet once a month for dinner. There are no more cheerful texts about dancing cat gifs. No, more Sunday morning phone calls. Our conversations are careful now. Quiet. Like walking across a frozen lake. They've started therapy. So have I. I can't call them mom and dad anymore. Not because they didn't love me, but because the words feel too heavy. Too conflicted. But they're still part of me. They always will be. And so is the Anderson family. I spend Tuesday mornings with Carol now, drinking tea and learning about the life I might have had. Sometimes she brings Peanut the little elephant and places it in my hands like a bridge between two worlds. Emma texts me every other day. Lily sends me drawings. Noah, who's 3, just calls me Aunt Jess. I decided to keep my name, Jessica, but I added Rachel legally. Jessica Rachel Anderson Thompson. A mouthful. Maybe. But it feels right. It carries both truths. The life I lost. The life I lived. The pharmacy where it all began has become a strange kind of landmark to me. I've walked past it countless times since. Sometimes I even go inside. I stand in the same line where that woman, my sister, turned around and said those 5 words. You look just like my sister. I think about how close I came to never knowing. About how a single moment in a pharmacy on a rainy Tuesday ripped the veil off an entire lifetime of secrets. And how, in that moment of chaos, I didn't lose myself. I found here. There's a quiet kind of power in the truth. It doesn't always roar in. Sometimes it arrives in whispers, in tremors, in the kind of soft, trembling voice that speaks your name and makes the world tilt. My story isn't clean. It's not a fairy tale. It's a bruise that healed unevenly, leaving something raw underneath. But it's mine. If you've ever questioned who you are, if you've ever carried a feeling deep down that something didn't quite fit, I hope my story reminds you of this. The truth has a way of finding you, sometimes when you least expect it, sometimes in the most ordinary places. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with your own story, your own reflections. You never know who might need to hear it.